Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night, Makhachev versus Green. We're going to start off with something light. For the past weeks, I've been tempting the gods, or God. I've been tempting him, and I've been doing it over and over again. I've been saying no injustice, I've been feeling myself. The judges were doing great, and then out of nowhere, they hit us with some shit that doesn't even make any sense. Usually when it's an injustice, usually when people get robbed, right? The last thing fresh on my mind of a robbery was Roberts versus, I can't even remember his name. Roberts versus a fighter I can't remember. But they gave it to Roberts, and that was the wrong decision. That was the last injustice I can remember. That was the last robbery I can remember off the top of my head that's close by, right? Maybe Barber versus Miranda Maverick, right? This one, it escapes me because I've been trying to think about it since I couldn't even enjoy the main event. I'm just going to be honest with you. And granted, Makhachev V Green, so there's nothing to really enjoy, but if it's, what I'm trying to say. But I couldn't even I was ready, but I couldn't even enjoy Cirkunov versus Thurman. Or Turman. I couldn't even enjoy that fight either because I was just so pent up. My mind was just so pent up on how did this girl get robbed? And I'm thinking about it now, right? Because here's my process. When I score these, and then I immediately get on the mic. That way I don't go on the internet and get my mind changed or whatever. These are my raw thoughts right after scoring them. So I haven't seen anything MMA since scoring these. And I'm thinking to myself, sometimes when there's a split decision, because there's a couple split decisions on this card, it's 2v1, right? And sometimes I'm thinking in my head, and if a decision goes the wrong way, it'll be 2v1 the wrong way, right? And I'm thinking in my head, I'm sure people have thought about this, right? I'm sure there's a long history of people probably thinking about this, but I've never thought about this, and I don't think a lot of people have thought about this. Will there ever be... I've never seen or thought of 3 judges, unanimous decision, getting it the wrong way. I've never seen that. Now, if I remember off the top of my head, I think Felipe versus Collier, maybe. I'm trying to remember. That might have been a split decision. But off the top of my head, I'm thinking that's 3 judges. Either way, it doesn't matter. That might be a split decision. 3 judges score. I really can't. It makes no sense. If you go back in the later episodes, I've said sometimes I'm watching something and the commentators will be saying something and I'm watching something and in my head I'm saying, am I watching this correctly? Are they watching it correctly? Am I being gaslit? There's times a commentator will say something, and this isn't me being shitty towards the commentators. I like the commentators. I'm just making a scenario where the commentators will say something, and I'll be watching, and I'm like, that didn't land. That other person landed. And then they'll say, but he landed. And I'll just sit back and be like, man, maybe I was wrong. And then I'll rewind, and I'll be like, no, I was right. What is this? And Bismarck said something interesting, that in the moment I was kind of pissed at, and the reason why I'm taking a long time is because I really want to break this down. I feel like it's too easy to just go, all right, we're going to talk about the 3 scorecards. No, we'll talk about the 3 scorecards, but for right now, I just want to delve into this a little deeper. He said something to the effect of, Cachoeira looks like she's in control of this fight. And what I understood of what he was saying was that she was pushing the pace. She was the aggressor, which was true. He wasn't incorrect in that. But we've seen many fights where someone is pushing the pace, someone is going forward, and is obviously losing. There's thousands of fights on the books of someone going forward and losing. You can, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of any. There's thousands, hundreds, I'll say hundreds. There's hundreds of fights where a man's pushing forward and they're getting outstruck. A woman's pushing forward and she's getting outstruck. There's hundreds of them. And I was watching it and I was just thinking to myself, yeah, he's right. She's the aggressor, but she's not winning. And then he said, and then there was a second part where this part probably annoyed me more, was he said Kim needs to be more active. Bisping did. And that one pissed me off because as he's saying that, Cachoeira is getting outstruck. And later they say 2-1. I don't know. I don't know how much more active she needs to be. We've seen people outstrike their opponent. I don't know, like, hell, there's, no, I won't use that as an example, but we've seen people outstrike their opponent 2 strikes up, 3 strikes up, 4, the numbers are close, and judges, these same judges, have gotten them correct. I don't want to bring up the Molly McCann fight, which I think Molly won that fight, but I won't bring up that fight because that's a totally different thing. We'll talk about this fight because that's what matters. She was outstriking her, and I didn't think it was helpful that the sounds coming out of the mics were she needed to be more active. It reminded me of Rosenstruck versus Gane, where the only person throwing and landing is Cyril Gane. Yet the narrative after the fight is he should have been more active and tried to finish the fight. Now that's much different. Those are heavyweights. That's a totally different circumstance. But in this fight, Yeon is not only landing, she's landing clear. Like, these weren't shots that were like whistling by Cachoeira. They were hitting her. They were audible. She was jabbing her face off. Yet, for some stupid reason, it's she needs to be more active. More active? What are you talking about? I was confused. I don't care if Cachoeira was pushing the pace. She wasn't hitting her as effectively as Yeon Kim. So I'm thinking to myself, you know, I'll go through these scorecards in a second, but I'm just thinking to myself, how, you know, I'm listening to the commentary, and obviously I'm not saying they're influential on what the judges, because they were as shocked as I was, but I'm listening to them and I'm thinking, you know, I didn't think too much of it. I just thought, it's annoying. It's like a B, right? When I heard that, I was like, they're just being annoying. Now I'm thinking, did the judges think that too? Because there's no way on God's green earth that you, and you know what's really hurting me? I'm thinking 2 things, right? Because 2 things are in my mind right now. I'm thinking, did they miss 30 extra strikes? I'm not trying to be a dick here. Did they miss 30 extra strikes? Or did they fall, or do they love elbows so much that they're higher than regular jabs and straight punches and overhand rights and overhand lefts and uppercuts and body shots? Are elbows that much more powerful? Because if that's the case, that would explain why Kutelaba versus Jacoby was a tie. That would explain so much. This is really... No, this might be one of the... This one actually pisses me off because it's all three judges. And I've said it before, while I don't like to look at the UFC stat counter, because in close fights I think they're a little off and they count certain strikes that aren't meant to be strikes, but that's whatever the point. If you watch this fight, this is one of the worst robberies. This is worse than Barber versus Miranda Maverick. This is worse than that. This is one of the worst robberies I've ever seen in my life, because someone was robbed in broad daylight. I think this fight happened at what? Like 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So that's Vegas. So 5 o'clock? 4 o'clock maybe? Someone... No, 6, 5, yeah. Their time. Robbed in broad daylight. I heard 29-28. I'm going to get to the scorecards. I heard 29-28. And I'm thinking, listen, I had 30-27. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess, we've seen those rounds where someone's getting outstruck, but they think it's even, so Cachoeira gets the takedown, so they give her the round. Okay, cool. I don't think so. Yeon Kim is outstriking her enough to where that takedown at the end doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not one of those takedowns where the strikes are even and the takedown takes over and wins her the round. That's not for me. We move on. The next two rounds are... she's out... Those elbows at the end don't matter. What? No one can argue that those elbows at the end matter. Yeon Kim got rocked, but Cachoeira got rocked probably 3 times in that last round off regular shots. Yeon Kim could... I'm not even trying to do a who's tougher than who nonsense, because that doesn't... It may help my argument, but it doesn't. At the end of the day, it's the raw fucking stats. There's no grappling in the third, and there's no grappling in the second. So we can't even do the strikes to grappling scenario. This is all strikes. And at the end of the day, Yeon Kim is outstriking her. When did we start doing a damage test? I've always said this in the back of my head, and I never wanted to say this out loud because I feel like this would come up one day. I feel like, and I think this is true, I feel like certain women's fights are judged differently, and they shouldn't be. It's unfair. I remember a fight, I think it was Blanchfield versus the other name escapes me, and they gave her multiple 10-8s, and I looked at the round and I watched it back and I thought to myself, in a men's fight, this is a 10-9. They've scored it a 10-9. There's been multiple fights like that, where the other person is barely kind of responsive and the person rides them for the whole round, a little bit of ground and pound here and there. It's a 10-9. In no way should women's fights be judged any differently. Now, obviously, certain, depending on them, the looks of the certain fighter, right, every fight's different. I understand that. But in that scenario, it shouldn't have been judged that way. And if someone is getting outstruck heavy like this in a men's fight, and then at the very end just start throwing elbows, and the other person, okay, we would score that the same exact way no matter what. At the least, it's a 29-28 for Yeon Kim. And and they gave it to Cachoeira because she's getting blasted for 4 minutes straight and then decides to... What? I've never seen this before. I've never seen this in my life. And I don't want to go heavy on the judges, but we'll start off because I think I've exhausted everything I need to say. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Yeon Kim versus Cachoeira. Injustice. My scorecard is a 30-27. I think you know who I gave it to. Judge Mike Bell, great judge, by the way, gives the first and the second to Cachoeira. Okay. All three of them have the same scorecard. Mike Bell, Saul Diamano, and Adelaide Bird. Big injustice. All three of them give the first to Cachoeira. I understand why they gave it to Cachoeira. I'm not dumb. I understand why they gave it to her. The takedown thing and won it for because here's why I know the takedown thing gave it to her. Because she was getting outstruck. Boom. It's as simple as that. And we can't keep saying this thing where like Yeon Kim has this weird motion where it looks like she's not really punching them hard. Bro, I don't know what else she has to do. And real quick point, I'm very thankful that the UFC gave her fight of the night because she deserves it. She deserved that 50K. She deserves 100K. So that was that first round. Second round, they gave Yeon Kim. Here's what pisses me off. Because minus the elbows, if you take out the elbows at the end of round 3, round 2 and 3 are basically the same fucking round. Cachoeira gets outstruck to the moon in round 2, and she gets outstruck in round 3. Yet, somehow, 7 elbows? Where one probably rocked her? Probably? Wasn't visible. One probably rocked Yeon Kim. Though, 7 jabs, straight hands, overhands, rocked Cachoeira. You know, it's one thing if this was a split D, which is still bad. It's all 3 judges scored it for her. And you can't say they weren't watching the fight. We can't do that. Enough with the, what are you watching? No, they were fucking watching the fight. Holy fuck. This is one of the worst. I haven't checked the online scorecards yet. I'm hoping and praying nobody scored this for Cachoeira. This is insane. Straight robbery for Yeon Kim. I don't know what And then round 3. There's really nothing to add to this. It's bad. It's bad. It's a bad scorecard. It's one of the worst I've ever seen. This is top 5 worst scorecard. Non-title fight, non-main event, worst scorecard. This is bad. This is fucking bad. But, whatever. You can't really do anything about it. We'll move on. I've been thinking about it ever since it happened. And I couldn't even enjoy the last few fights. The last few fights ended in great finishes. But it just doesn't sit well. When these injustices happen, I know that's the whole point of the show is basically just me fucking yelling. But and as the show goes on, I don't want it to be an injustice. But it's bad. It's a really bad. It's all 3. That's what makes it worse. It means all 3 somehow were like, hey, she's out striking her. Oh, she's throwing elbows. Oh, in a minute? Like what? 7 elbows? Oh, she cut her open. What the fuck? What? What the fuck? Oh my fuck, man. What the fuck? Damn, dude. That's hell. That's hell on fucking earth. That shit it's fucking disgusting. Alright. Honorable mentions. The segment where I just nitpick rounds that I don't like and then explain them and what I just fuck. Altamirano versus Hernandez. This was a split D. I had this 29-28, giving the first 2 to Hernandez. Mike Bell reflects my scorecard. Saul D'Amato had it 30-27. He gave the last round to Hernandez. And then Dave Hagen had it for Altamirano. Honorable mention to Saul D'Amato and Dave Hagen. First of all, he gave the last to Altamirano. That's fine, but he gave the first to Altamirano. In that first one, it was very close on the feet. This is where I'm not even going to mention it. He gave the first to Altamirano. In that first one, it was very close on the feet. That takedown won him the round. That's one of those, it's one of those rounds where when it's close on the feet, the takedown wins you the round. That's one of those. I'm surprised he didn't catch on to that. So, honorable mention to that. The third round was given to Hernandez by Saul D'Amato. Definitely not. It was close on the feet again, and Altamirano got a takedown. That round goes to Altamirano. So honorable mention there to Saul D'Amato. We now move to Perez versus Martinez. A great fight. Nice fight. My scorecard was 29-28 to Martinez, giving him the last 2 rounds. Mike Bell had it the same way. Me and Mike Bell, man, we're like best friends. Had it the same way. Saul D'Amato, we had it the same way as well. And then Dave Hagen gave it 30-27. I don't know. I saw this, and I'll bring up commentary again. This isn't me crapping on commentary. I feel like I have to say that. They said something where they said, with that knockdown, Perez is back in the fight. I don't know why they said they said it, but they said it as though he lost the first round. Listen, he was getting outstruck in the first round. And then he dropped Martinez. He won the round. I mean, check every scorecard universally. You drop someone at the end of the round, even though you're kind of getting outstruck, you win the round. This is a universal thing. Obviously, it depending on the time of the round. Like if it's in the middle of the round, depends what happens later. If it's at the start of the round, also depends what happens later. We've seen many rounds like that. But he drops him at the end of the round. It's his round. Perez won the first round. So, honorable mention there to Dave Hagen for giving Martinez the first round. That was weird. Next honorable mention. Nunez versus Pascal. Also another nice fight. I like Nunez. Really nice fighter. Had it 30-27. This was a standard 30-27. Douglas Crosby had it the same way. Chris Lee had it the same way. Tony Weeks had this. I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Douglas Crosby had it the same way as me. Tony Weeks had it the same way as me. And then Chris Lee, in the second round, gave a 10-8. Honorable mention to Chris Lee. Tired of the inflated 10-8s. It's an unnecessary 10-8 in that second round. It's close on the feet. Nunez got 2 knockdowns. and Pascal got a takedown, but Nunez was mostly active on the bottom. This isn't boxing. Sorry. There's no need for the, we've seen, a lot of people have gotten knocked down twice. Still given a standard 10-9. But even in this round, Pascal got the takedown. Didn't do much with it, but still got the takedown there. It's an inflated 10-8. Honorable mention to Chris Lee for that one. We move to Petrosyan versus Rodrigues. My scorecard is 29-28, with me giving a 10-9 to Petrosyan in the first and the third. Now, I did put a close marker on the third round. I put a close marker on the third round because when I just have that gut feeling where it's like, it's kind of close, there's some of those rounds where even though you know what happened and you're going by, again, I went by my principle, which is why I scored it for Petrosyan. I'll explain in a second. But you got to put a close marker on it. You can't really be mad at if someone gave it to someone else, because it's 3 rounds, so you can't, I didn't put this in the injustice category because they could have given it to Rodrigues and I wouldn't have been mad. But there are some honorable mentions here. I gave it to Petrosyan in the first and the third, 29-28 for him. Mike Bell, he had it 29-28 for Petrosyan. Here's my problem. I'm gonna throw an honorable mention there because of the second round, where he gives it to Petrosyan. In that second round, again, very close on the feet. Rodrigues got a takedown. That's his round. Honorable mention for Mike Bell. Same for Tony Weeks. Tony Weeks had a 30-27. He had a 30-27. Still gave it to Petrosyan. Same thing with the second round. Honorable mention there. And then and then for Douglas Crosby, he gave a 10-9 in the second and the third for Rodrigues. No honorable mention there. It's the third round was very close. Very, very close. Petrosyan outstruck Rodrigues, got a takedown, and Rodrigues had like a submission attempt. But what made it a close round was the head kick, the hard shots that Petrosyan took in that lead up to the submission attempt. But what won him the round in my eyes, and I assume in the 2 other judges for that last round, was that he just outstruck him, and probably the takedown also helped also. So again, I wouldn't have been mad if one of the other judges scored it for him. I could understand why. I assume it's based off the head kick, and if something else happened, maybe. But yeah, that's why I put a close marker. Maybe if I watch it again, I probably wouldn't put a close marker on it. But I get why someone would score it for Rodrigues. I understand it, but I disagree. But definitely not a 30-27. Definitely not a 30-27. Yeah. And I think that is all we have. So those are all the honorable mentions and the injustice. It was a great night of fights. I've never... It's just too much of this, man. This one's bad. This one really stings. I think it was last week. I'm not sure. Maybe 2 weeks ago. My head's fuzzy right now. But the Adesanya versus Whitaker fight, it wasn't an injustice because that second round is close. But, you know, these are getting out of hand. These are getting out of hand. I mean, all three judges, man. All three judges, man. That's goofy. Anyways, thank you for listening. I'll be back next week. Hopefully no injustices. I